Okay, so as you can see, this is sort of like a bit of a nightmare. We've got, what's that written on the wall there? Gentrification sucks. Oh, right,
And
okay.
poppycock.
And poppycock. All right, that sounds like one of my officer friends, yeah? All right, so have a look around. You can see some of the way that this house has been trashed. You know? So they wouldn't let this be turned into multiplex apartments, so look what you get. Huh? What's that one say? Nightmare on Angel Street.
But it says 3 townhouses between offside parking spots.
And burn corporates down.
Yeah, but it got protested before they wanted to turn it into multi-apartment.
Yes, I'll comply, policeman. Don't show me. But they love cop cars.
They do.
That's amazing.
All right, keep it down, people, keep it down. All right, just have a look back here. That's disgusting. Queer. That's disgusting. Disgusting. Huh? Okay, sorry, go ahead.
Okie doke. So I'll just give everyone a brief little micro history of this house. It's become affectionately known as the Abbey, and it's been a living space for people for coming up to 2 years, I would say. The space was empty for a number of years before that. It used to be lived in by an older gentleman who was renting off people he knew in a friendly kind of arrangement, and the house during that time kind of got run down a bit. It was a bit dilapidated. Some people noticed that it was empty. There were a few signs to kind of indicate such, and people moved into the premises. Interestingly enough, it turned out that one of the locks put on the front of the door was actually put there by other squatters also scouting out the location, which is a situation that kind of sometimes crops up. A few people moved in at first and opened an invitation for other people to come and live here, with the idea that there'd also be one room that was permanently a room that people could come and stay in temporarily, a guest room. And that kind of reflects a bit of the philosophy that the house was started with, which was that in occupying this space, it was not purely for the people living there, but it was also a space open to other people that needed to use it. That was also reflected in regular community meals that happened here, squat luck dinners, where other people that were squatting other houses and just neighbours from the local Darlington area would come around for community potluck dinners. And also things like community actions being organised out of here, meetings happening here, couch surfers. If anyone needed a place to stay, the house was also there. So if also the individual rooms of people, if you weren't staying there, were considered up for grabs for guests to stay in. So kind of challenging those ideas around personal space and making it a community space. It's interesting that we were able to live here squatting without any problems for a year and a half. It's a lovely 4-bedroom terrace, nice backyard, all the facilities. We were then discovered by the landlords, and we actually had quite a positive experience there. There weren't threats of being kicked out on the street or threats of the police being called. We were able to negotiate with them, and through that actually come to get a lease for a 3-month period. So I think that that's an important thing in that it provides a more optimistic end for occupied spaces. On that topic as well, I might just mention again the potential use of caretaker leases, and that there is the group Anyplace who have taken out public liability insurance in their name, so that people can use those types of caretaker leases as a bargaining tool in occupying spaces.
How often does that work? Are there many people currently living under caretaker leases?
At the moment in Sydney, there is a community space called Anyplace, which is a series of maybe 10 artist studios. So they're rented out in order to cover the cost of the public liability insurance for about $30 a month. There's also in this space a big screen printing, community workshop, band rehearsal room, cinema as well. That particular space was established with help from people in the council in that area, A better example though of how caretaker leases have worked would be, and this is also with negotiation with council, would be up in Newcastle, where the Renew Newcastle scheme is trying to revitalise the inner city, which is like suffering intense urban decay. Like economically, the downtown area is defunct. Businesses are not able to sustain themselves, and this, in an attempt to bring some life back, the council has been giving caretaker leases to people with entrepreneurial DIY projects. So you have people doing vegan cupcake cafes and museum libraries and all sorts of things like that. So that's a really good precedent for the caretaker's lease and a good way that you can communicate a successful use of it, if you will. But another thing that I think is really important to talk about if we're talking about the caretaker lease is that it was pioneered by people around squat space and around the Broadway squats, which was a bigger occupied space down the road. And there's lots of really good information about that process as well. So I think that it can be a slippery slope though sometimes in terms of the co-option of our spaces when we do negotiate, because it does kind of mean that you're holding yourself accountable to interests that are outside the people using it, to the council interests or the developers' interests. And why are they doing it? Often it's because they want to buy favour or be able to say like, look at this little cute community project we're doing, so that you don't look at all this fucked up shit we're doing over here. So that's something to be conscious of in terms of that as well. And this is where some people are totally just interested in autonomous spaces that are claimed without cooperation with civil authorities. Yeah. The reason that we're moving out is because we're 2 months into that 3-month lease and the house has started to get run down. Also, a lot of the people that were here have moved out. There's been a lot of fluctuations and we're ready to leave on our own terms.
And there aren't other squatters who want to take over the lease or continue?
So you may remember how I asked you to go down the road to use the toilet?
Yeah.
So the nature of squatting is you've got to do a lot of DIY stuff. So I thought, like, some things I'll mention is that in our time here, we renovated the kitchen, we tore up the carpet, built a deck at the back, installed a garden system on permaculture principles, repainted the bathroom, retiled the kitchen, did a whole lot of work and improvement on the place, using sweet DIY skills, scavenged materials, not spending too much money. So when it comes to plumbing though, that can be a different kettle of fish. There's only so much you can do and Drano doesn't fix everything. So that's also part of why we're moving out, in that there are some issues with the plumbing that actually go back to the system behind the house. So one of, like, this whole row of terraces eventually are all probably going to get knocked down because the land is starting to sink. All the houses, if you look at the front, have the same cracks, and it's only a matter of time really until they start to fall apart. The plumbing systems out the back are very old, and I mean the same issue we're having is of cracked piping behind the house's system in the garden. This is a similar issue that another house had just a little while ago. So that particular issue is something that we would need to spend a lot of money to fix, something that the landlords probably won't want to spend a lot of money to fix. And for us, it's easier at this stage to move on to brighter, greener pastures than to deal with the shit.
Literally, yeah.
Yeah. So that's the ironic end to the
Shitty place that's going
escapade
down
of the
is,
Abbey.
you know, a bit unsquattable.
Yeah, but it's kind of exciting to move
Yeah.
on to new spaces and new projects as well. So some of the previous, like when the lease was signed, some of the previous tenants that were here, or previous squat mates or whatever, have actually moved on to open up 2 new squats that are within a block of this house, or within this neighbourhood. There was another house that got established just the other day. So, I mean, this is something like, this was my first experience of squatting personally. It's something that I always wanted to do. And when the last house which you guys visited earlier today, that was my previous residence, Angel Street, got evicted, it was something that I looked into. But
There is an officer of the law speaking. I'd just like to say, before we begin watching these films, that for somebody with such disrespect for the law, you speak quite well. And,
Even intelligent,
could be said, yes. And thank you for letting all of us be in this space and learning something or other. It's very nice. Yeah,
Thank
we'll-
you, officer. I can say that.
We'll be back tomorrow to serve an early eviction notice.
And I should say that the only reason they're in the house is because we let them come in. Keep your door shut, and they can't come in unless you let them.
Oh, but tomorrow, different story tomorrow.
Where's your warrant, hey?
Just here. Just right here.
Cool. I will mention as well, like, yeah, it's really cool to see this space in use in this way.
This is a short film called I Heart the Block that I made in 2006. Basically, like Redfern or the Block is a really important place for Aboriginal people, and it's a really important, significant place for social rights and human rights in Australia in general. And basically, like, there's been lots of debate and talk about what should happen with the block, and I should also say that that it was actually given to Aboriginal people years and years ago, but has been kind of fucked over since. And I basically decided to make a film with the kids from the area because kids don't get all involved in the political jargon, and they just kind of say it how it is. And yeah, I should probably let it speak for itself. But I will also mention that 2 or 3 big houses at the bottom of Vine Street have just been put up for sale, which is really sad. And I don't know if any of you have actually walked through Redfern. There's like this huge kind of bit of wasteland in the middle of the block. And like, for example, I used to go to Marawina preschool, and that just used to be like a whole row of houses filled with families, and it was this beautiful community that is now just a wasteland. So yeah.
Thank you.
It's a film I made last year about my community in Chippendale. I live at Planet X Housing Co-op, and just around the corner there's a huge, like you've probably seen a huge development going on at the moment, Central Park, it's called. Yeah, so I've been a bit, devastated by that and kind of concerned about what that might do. So yeah, so I kind of interviewed people, like friends of mine that live in the car, but people, well, not only friends live in the car, but people that had a connection to Chippendale in some way, and they're all people that I know, that I have connections with. Yeah, so it's pretty a positive film about, how to see community and what's important to them, and yeah, so,
Thank you. Thank
Yeah, me too. See you guys. Thanks for filming. Lovely. Thanks, officer. See you later.
Thanks. See ya. Alright, thanks. See ya.
Oh, thanks, guys. Thanks, Sue. Nothing on it. Really? Let me get mine.
And this shows a little views from waking up in the Blunt Gallery tonight. It's very nice to actually use this space as a living space a little bit, which I think will really well with the whole theme of the gallery around occupying space, around using space and fulfilling our needs as well. So a little dance party, it was lots of fun, very cozy. Those Hessian sacks are actually fantastic, so I thoroughly recommend it to everyone that puts exhibits on here. I don't know how Willow will feel about that, but hit it up.
Thanks, Ben.
No worries.